Hello, Randall Borden here, and I'm here to talk to you about how to get custody in a case. So first thing is, how old are the children in elementary school? Then the court will make a decision, so anywhere from 4 years old to senior in high school, the court can decide. Typically the court will shrug their shoulders if they're teenagers and just say that they cannot make a decision, they cannot force the teenagers to. So typically the courts want to see the parents getting along. That's one of the factors the court must consider in awarding custody. If you're able to work that out yourself, that would be great. Otherwise, the court must consider a number of statutory factors. That being said, the courts like to see a home base for the children. So if they're going to public school, then they would like the children to be in the same place Sunday night through Friday morning, meaning that anywhere from September to June, one parent would get most of the custody. This is physical custody, which is basically where the children sleep. To summarize, when the children are in anywhere kindergarten to senior in high school, they would like to see the children in the same bed most of the time, so one parent would get physical custody. The significance of that, of course, is that the other parent has to pay child support. Typically, normally things start off with joint legal custody, which means both parents have a decision or have a say in major events of the child, a surgery, where they go to school, and so forth. But in terms of physical custody, in a child of that age, it's usually with one parent, which means that parent would receive custody. The parent who's been awarded physical custody receives child support, and then the other parent, the non-custodial parent, would have to pay child support. That being said, there are of course a number of factors that can change that. If the parents live very near to each other, even if in the same school district, obviously you've got a stronger case for 50-50 custody, since the children would be going to the same school. If one of the parents is willing to drive the kids and pick the kids up at the school, each parent's gross income, then the medical or the insurance for the child, and then any daycare. So it's the gross income of each parent, so no deductions for taxes or withholdings. And it's also income from all sources. It's actually the child's or the children's share of insurance. So it's not the entire family plan. It's not the entire amount that's deducted on one parent's pay stub. It is the difference between the family plan and the individual plan. So typically the parent that is paying health insurance for the child has to go and get those two numbers. The family plan, which is the amount on their pay stub, and subtracting out the individual plan, the insurance for one person that they have to get from their employer. And then daycare. So again, obviously the younger the child, the more the child would need daycare. It should be the actual amount. It should be the lowest equivalent daycare in the area. A lot of times the parent wants to play games by designating their family member that is being paid a huge amount of daycare under the table, so there's no receipts, there's no proof, there's no 1099s, but the parent will just say, I'm paying this person $500 a week for daycare. Why do they need daycare? It's work-related daycare. It's daycare to enable the parent to work, and obviously if the parent is not working during business hours, they don't need that daycare. Calculating child support, the daycare is very important. It can actually move the amount a great deal. Changes in the parent's income does not change the amount of child support that much. It just is what it is. You just calculate it out. In terms of child custody and in terms of child support and visitation, it doesn't make any difference whether or not the parties are married. The courts must apply the same law, the same standards, the same decision-making process. There's things you can do, have the child alone. the parent could pay for the child's phone so that the parent can talk to the child at any time. And then there's a whole variety of games that get played with the electronics, tracking the phone. Why is the child spending the night over at the girlfriend's house or the boyfriend's house? Why isn't the child at home on a school night? The parent could see that from the tracking the child's phone. So there's things like that that occur also. Again, visitation is typically a standard. It can be changed, but you typically would go into court and the judge would say, all right, do we have standard visitation? What are the holidays? What's the visitation time in the summer? And frankly, an experienced lawyer should actually have that worked out even before going into court. So that's custody, visitation, child support. If it's a divorce case, of course, one of the parents might be getting spousal support, and if that's the case, then spousal support would count as income and both paid and received. So there are formulas for adjusting that. Other things that get litigated sometimes would be the amount of medical unreimbursed or uninsured medical. So if something is not covered, again, braces is a typical example, that should be addressed, that should be spelled out in the order. So do the parents split it? Does one parent pay all of it? A typical arrangement is that the parents split it by the share of their income. So if one parent makes $30,000 a year and the other one makes $70,000 a year, then one parent would pay 30%, the other parent would pay 70%. Of course, there's also, if it's a large expenditure like braces or some kind of a reconstructive surgery, and typically you'd want to put in there that the bills have to be submitted within so many days. You don't want one parent saving up 10 years of bills and submitting them all at one time. Child support will end when the child turns 18, or if the child is 19 and a full-time student and living with the parent receiving the child support. So that at that point, this child support would end at 19. Number 3 is if the child is handicapped or will be in need of child support potentially for the rest of the child's life. And then that would be a case where child support could last the entirety of the child's life. And those situations are usually pretty dire, pretty bad to have to litigate something like that. Visitation if the child is a toddler. So you could have visitation if the child's a baby, maybe a few hours a day, a few days a week. Another dispute is what is the child support used for? So you'll typically have complaints by the parent who's paying child support will complain that the custodial parent isn't even paying rent, living with her parents. Why should I be paying the full amount of child support when the mother doesn't even pay rent, doesn't pay for her car, doesn't pay for food? That's kind of the way it is. The legislature made that decision decades ago, and that is really what it is, and there's no way that you can argue with that. Another way people get really into big trouble in paying child support is if they can't document it. It's important to have some kind of a documented payment system, automatic deduction from your checking account. DCSE can simply take it. If one of the parents moves, then that is a very difficult case. That's called a relocation, where one parent relocates. And it is difficult because you actually have to put on almost 2 cases. You have to put on a case of how the child is living here, and you have to show the court what the child's life would be like at the new location. You would need, leases for the new location and the old location, photographs, records, doctors. If the parent moves, what's going to be the new pediatrician? What's going to be the new school? What's going to be the new friends? Is the child going to be uprooted and have to make friends all over again? Why is the parent moving? Now, typically, the parent will say, well, I'm going to get more money, and that will benefit the child. Normally, that's not a good enough reason. That's a good reason for the parent to move, but it's not a good reason for the child. The parent might be here in an expensive area, struggling, can't make it financially, and then it's going to be moving to the parents' house. So the parents, or the grandparents, the mother, and the child, or the father, will all be living in the same house. So now that parent will be off working, and then grandpa and grandma will be able to take care of the child. So there's free daycare. Obviously, they're loving parents, loving grandparents. It does put a big burden on the parent that does not have custody.